All right, you guys. I want a nice, clean fight.
What's up, you guys? Chad here, Dynamic BMW with round 2 of Dynamic Drives. This is our second podcast YouTube series. So like, subscribe if you like our content. We do a lot of automotive. We get into really personal, into the lives of drivers, individuals behind the scenes. Today, we have the king of controversy. You might know him as S58 is the GOAT, the quarter mile draggy king. Mr. My opinion is better than yours. My brother from another mother, Darrell Coleman. What's up, Darrell?
What's going on?
Darrell, do we have the same dad? Because my last name is Coleman too.
No, I actually, my biological father's name is actually Stoltz.
Oh, okay.
But, you know, my mother left my father at a very, very early age. Mm-hmm. They had issues when she was pregnant with me. Wow. So she was very bitter towards my father, and she changed the name on the birth certificate. So
he's been out of your life forever?
Yes.
Wow.
Yep. So my last name was actually supposed to be Stoltz.
But you took mom's last name?
No, took stepfather's last name.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
And stepfather was Coleman?
Yes.
So let's get into that here in a minute. But just the flow of the podcast for everybody watching. Generally, what I like to do is we're going to go through Darrell's life. We're going to talk about his childhood, everything kind of from the ground up. What has made Darrell the man he is today, what he's learned, what has influenced him. Just kind of go deep into that. Mm-hmm. And then we'll get into some car stuff. And then towards the 3/4 end mark of this video, we're going to get pretty deep into who everybody that knows you now, deep into just kind of like what you're all about. There's been controversy. You're very opinionated. You're very raw. Mm-hmm. Why Darrell is that way. We're going to talk about some touchy subjects, and it's going to be really, really good. So let's just go through the flow. So start me off. I mean, let's continue off of what you just said. Mm-hmm. You were born. Your mom didn't take your real father's last name. You took stepfather's last name. Mm-hmm. Where were you born? Bring us up from there.
I was born in Los Angeles, California. Mm. I grew up in Port Hueneme, Oxnard area, which is about an hour north of LA.
Right.
My mom was a nurse. She worked, in Ventura. She worked in Santa Barbara. Uh-huh. So, it was a big shell shock. My stepfather came into our life, and I basically just loved him like he was a father, and he was black. So that was kind of weird because I would go around telling people that he was my father when I was real young, and people would just kind of roll their eyes and be like, yeah, he's your father, because I was, white boy with super blonde hair, bleach blonde hair, because being out in the sun so much and being a beach boy, and then as I got older, I just played a lot of video games in my younger years. But unfortunately, my mother and my father had, issues. He started using drugs, started to beat on my mom a little bit. And then towards the end there, he tried to kill my mother. So we moved from California to New York to get away from him. And because my mother's sister was actually dying of cancer at the time, and she only had about 6 months to live. So my mom just packed up everything, and we drove from California to New York. And, pretty much was just me and her from that point on.
Was your stepdad in the picture yet?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So it was you, your mom, and your stepdad?
Yes. In California.
In California. Moved to New York.
No. My mom and my stepfather is where their marriage went wrong. Oh. We fled California to get away from my stepfather.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So how old were you then?
When we moved, I was 13. I'd say it all started right around when I was about 10, 11 is when it started to get bad.
So about a couple few years of,
Yeah.
and you were a young teenager, a middle schooler,
Yes.
having to live through this event in your life, which was definitely, probably paid a pretty good psychological toll on you at the time.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not the type of person who asks for breaks or makes excuses for, like, I find it, it bothers me when people talk about how bad their childhood was.
Right.
And then they use that as an excuse to be, an alcoholic or a drug addict or all these issues they have. We all know that the trauma that we go through as kids kind of molds us as what we are for adults. But I hate when people use that excuse to kind of be a fuck up.
As a crutch.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm this way because of this. Like, well, you still have the choice to change.
Yeah. And I
Easier
feel
said than
like
done.
this new generation too is like, oh yeah, you need smoke pot, or you need antidepressants, you need anti-anxiety medication, you need this, you need that, because we know that you went through all of this now. Instead of, I'm actually a big believer. I watched a short podcast on a psychologist who said that goes against everything, which is, everybody tells you that you should talk about your trauma, right? That's what people say. You should go to therapy and you should talk about it. And her outlook on it is you should not talk about it, because when you talk about this stuff, you relive it and you never heal from it.
Right.
So her outlook is we shouldn't be talking about it. We shouldn't be reliving these traumatic events that we had as kids or adults. We should be moving on from it and burying it and moving on with our lives and trying to move forward, not look back and reopen old wounds. So I have to say I completely agree with that. I've only been to therapy a couple times, and it wasn't for that. I had a close friend of mine who took his own life. I have him tattooed on my chest. And I went to therapy for that for a little while, and I found that it did absolutely nothing for me. And it did absolutely nothing for me talking about my childhood, just reliving that. It was just, I don't see any benefit to that.
So how have you overcome that?
I mean, I guess out of sight, out of mind, just by trying to just move forward and not dwell on the past, I just don't see any benefit in that. Maybe take it and try to use it in a positive way.
Right.
What not to do. But it makes it easier as a father, because it's like I had two shitty fathers, right? And it's kind of easier for me to just do better than them. You know what I mean? Because they had such low standards.
Right.
So, trying not to follow in your father's footsteps. A lot of people want to follow in their father's
either
footsteps.
or, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't. I want to do things completely differently. You know what I mean? So now when you moved to New York, so you're about 13. Yeah.
So it was just you and mom.
Yeah. Amen.
I would assume that you guys found a place out there. She got a job. Were you?
My mother's family's all from here.
Okay.
So we have deep roots, family roots, and around the Syracuse area.
Okay, Syracuse,
on my mom's
New
side.
York.
Yeah.
So you kind of got with family. Now, did you take care of mom? Were you like her protector?
Yeah, I did. But, I was also a little asshole too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I had no father figure, in my teenage years, when I was very, very difficult to kick my ass and keep me in place. So I felt, now that I look back, I really, really put my mom through some shit.
Right.
Because, she didn't have someone to kind of keep me in check, and make me go to school and make sure that I'm doing my homework and make sure that I'm not skipping school and smoking pot and drinking beers and doing stupid shit that teenagers do.
Yeah. Right.
So, and me getting a car at 16, you know what I mean? It was a bad idea, because I immediately had that freedom to just go out and do stupid stuff. You know what I mean?
So let's get into that in a second. How was the high school year? So I would assume that you went to a public high school.
Yeah. I went to CNS, which is Cicero North Syracuse High School.
Okay.
At that time, it was a lot different than it is now. It was kind of a jockish high school. Not very diverse. most of the kids were middle to upper class, very kind of preppy. You know, and if you didn't fit in, you didn't fit in. And in those years, I was, you know, heavily into. I picked up the guitar and I was playing music and big on like, you know, 90s alternative and grunge music and stuff like that. So I had like the long hair like Kurt Cobain. And I you know, I didn't fit in. I wasn't popular at all in high school. You know,
So those are like different groups in your high school?
Oh, yeah.
So
there were different floors.
The preppies,
and
popular sports.
We called them white hats. People wore white hats in high school. And they, with colleges on them and stuff. And that was like a trend. You know what I mean? And you either fit in with the popular crowd and you played sports and you wore white hats, or you were kind of, you know, an outsider. You were like, they had like the nerds, and then they had like the gothic crowd, and then they had like the skater crowd, and then, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I graduated in 98, so you would have graduated in 2000?
99.
99, 1 year. Okay.
But I didn't even graduate.
Okay.
I dropped out in 98. Got my GED in 99.
Okay, got it. So you dropped out for how long? Not even a year?
I would say it was about a year and a half. Yeah.
So how did mom take that?
She hated it.
Yeah.
But you know, what was she gonna do? You know? There wasn't much she was able to do.
You guys were close?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you shared things, she knew what you were doing. It's not like you were hiding shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so you got your GED. You kind of got things under control, it seems, to a certain degree.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah. I was still smoking pot and still, you know, partying and still being irresponsible. And then when I was about 19, almost 20, I think it was about early 19, I tried to get a job with a buddy of mine in Louisiana, because he had promised me he could get me some work, and I wanted to go out there and kind of start a new life. And I went out there, ended up being a shit show. He was living on a reservation. There was not as much work as he had promised. So then I went and I lived with my brother for a little while, and was trying to get my act together, and I actually tried to get into the military. But the guy that was trying to get me into the military kind of rushed me into the ASVAB and didn't let me study long enough for it. And turns out in Texas, you actually have to score higher on the ASVAB with the GED than you do with a high school diploma. And I failed it by 1 point. So I almost went to the military.
Wow.
By 1 point, I didn't go to the military.
Go over what this ASVAB is.
Okay, it's a test, like an SAT that you have to take essentially to get into the military.
So it's all like a written test?
Yes.
It's not a physical test?
No.
Okay.
No, this is all, just written stuff.
And is it just like general knowledge?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a mixture of everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So then that didn't happen.
Yeah.
So now you're 19. You don't get in. You're a point off. What are you doing?
I went back to hanging out with I made some friends that were smoking pot and partying in Texas.
Yeah.
So at that point, I tried to clean up and pass a drug test and stuff because I thought I was going in the military. So I would get up and run like a mile in the Texas heat and was trying to mentally prepare myself for boot camp, essentially. And then I kind of just was kind of lost, didn't know where I was going to go. I ended up coming back home and then started, falling back into my old ways, just smoking pot, crappy jobs and stuff. And then I decided I was going to quit smoking pot. And then my mom was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna move," and she's like, "I'm gonna go do travel nursing." And she had finished up her master's. She had already had her bachelor's.
Well,
she finished up her master's, and she was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go travel nursing." She's gonna move around a lot. And she's like, "You're not coming with me." So I was like, "Okay." So I'm on my own, and she was like, "I'm gonna leave you the deposit for the house, and you're gonna go and get your own apartment with your friends, and it's time to grow up and be a man." So I think she got a taste of that freedom of not having me around,
right.
and that little bit of independence that parents dream of.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because I was a little shithead too,
She's like giving you that freedom to fail.
Yes.
Not necessarily wanting you to, but like, hey, sink or swim.
Yep.
This is it.
Yep. So it was a pretty short period of time when I came back, and she decided she was going to do the travel nursing. So at that time I was forced to become a man and go out on my own and get apartments and get roommates and live on my own and pay my own bills and car insurance and all that stuff. So that's what I did. And
so now you're early 20s.
Yep.
In that time, you're kind of working some odd jobs, things of that nature.
Oh, I landed a job at a pretty big company called McLean Northeast.
Okay.
They do a very large grocery division. And I had to pass a drug test to get in there. So I quit smoking pot on my own, and none of my friends wanted to, and they were assholes about me quitting. But I kind of had to like find a new selection of friends. When you quit doing that and you quit doing dumb shit,
right,
you find out who your real friends are. So I got a job at McLean's, and I worked there for 9 years. And
so that takes you to like 30.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you were living on your own. You had the house, same house.
I bought my house when I worked there.
Okay.
I own my own house now. So I bought it when I was like 27.
So early.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of kids, like, they're not even thinking about a house until their 30s now.
Yeah.
And then carrying a 30-year
It was
mortgage.
a great time to buy. That was during the buyer's market. That was the Obama era.
Okay.
When they were doing
2008.
we're doing I got screwed. They were doing a $7,500 loan that year. And then I bought right around Christmas time. I closed like 23 days or something.
Yeah.
And then everybody who bought January 1st on right after I closed, they got to keep the 7,500. And I had to pay back my 7,500. It was a loan.
I have the same luck as you have.
It was terrible.
I think we all kind of do, right?
But I used that 7,500 to furnish the house. And stuff. Yeah.
So it served a purpose.
Yeah.
So now where are you at? Like, do you, so you're married now. You're married with kids.
2 kids. Yeah.
2 kids. So when did wife come into the picture?
Well, when I met her, she was 17. I was 20.
Okay. Wow.
We've been together for 22 years.
So right when you moved to Syracuse.
No. When I moved to Syracuse, I was 13.
Oh, you were 13.
Yep.
Right when you moved back from Texas then?
No, I still had another girl that I was seeing. I think it was my second or my third apartment that I had.
Right.
Because, you go through apartments so quick when you're young.
Yep.
As when I met her.
So out of high school.
Yep.
Before you went to Texas for the military thing.
No. She came into the equation after.
Oh, okay. After all that. So right when you got back.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. I'd say shortly within the year.
And y'all dated for a long time?
Yeah. I mean, we didn't rush into marriage. I think it was like 6-7 years. She's going to crucify me for not knowing exactly, but about 7 years before we got married. And
that's a good.
We didn't
range.
have a expensive wedding. We got married in Vegas. It was like $160. I'm not one for. I think spending money on weddings is stupid.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous. People spend $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 on a day.
Right. A lot of the ladies, it's their day. They've dreamed about it since they were a kid. I think our society has like ingrained that into our culture, into their brains. Like, I need to have this. This is my day. Right. So, I mean, to each their own, but I agree with you.
I think that set me up to not have the financial burdens that a lot of people have. I didn't go to college, so I didn't have any school debt. I didn't have the big wedding to pay for, and those are 2 big things that I feel like most Americans do and deal with. So I feel like they never really get their debt paid off and get caught up until they're in their 40s because they've got to pay off, know, all that school debt and all that. It's like having, be like having a second mortgage essentially.
And it feels like you're always running from something and instead of running to something.
Yeah.
I think that, from what you've said so far, it kind of seems to me like you've really had to learn a lot of things on your own. You've learned a lot of things the hard way, but you're educated and you're a cerebral guy to the point where it needs to make sense to you. And I know you to some degree now, and that's who the Darrell that I know is you kind of like accrue all of this data, and the data tells you whether or not to proceed with whatever it is that you're going to do.
Yeah. I like to overanalyze things.
Overanalyze things.
Yeah.
It like gives you comfort. Does it give you comfort?
Yeah, it's that? Like I love Tool. I'm a huge Tool fan. So like Maynard James Keenan says in the song Lateralis, overanalyzing separate the body from the mind. So that's I have ADHD too. And I was fortunate enough my mother never put me on like Ritalin for it.
Right.
Like everybody was put on it in the 90s and the 2000s.
Almost like a little bit after.
So I think that's probably why I smoked a lot of pot. Is probably because that kind of balanced me out.
Yeah.
You know? But then I became dependent on it and it became a habit.
Right.
And anytime I form a habit, whether it's alcohol or marijuana or whatever, I'll do it for a certain amount of years. And then when I feel like I'm dependent on something, I will get myself off of something, even coffee.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if I drink coffee for 5 years straight and I feel like I'm dependent on coffee and I cannot function, I'll quit drinking coffee just to prove to myself that I can quit drinking coffee.
So very much self-aware.
Yeah.
Of what you're doing.
Yeah.
So let's go back to wife and kids. So you guys got married after 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're, what, 27?
Yeah.
Ish?
Yeah.
Got married in Las Vegas. Mm-hmm. Small wedding. That sets you up for the future. Let's start from there. Like, where did you go from getting married? How has that kind of progressed to the point where we're at now?
Well, when my wife was 8 months pregnant, I lost my job at McLean's.
Okay.
So I cashed out my 401k, started doing a little bit of hustling with that money. Mm-hmm. Was kind of lost and didn't really know where I was going to go.
What year was this?
Career-wise, 09.
So this was hard because if we have some of the younger generation, in 2009, we had a collapse of the economy. Mm-hmm. It was really bad. A lot of, you would call it blue-collar workers were losing their jobs. People were being laid off. The housing market crashed horribly. Mm-hmm. Like a $300,000 house was now worth like $175,000. Mm-hmm. People were stuck in their mortgages. People couldn't buy food, provide for their families. So that I'm just kind of setting up the time period here. So you lose your job. She's 7 months pregnant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Continue with that.
Yeah. So, I started hustling and doing whatever I could to support my family. Got a couple weird part-time jobs. I was doing like catering for a sandwich company in Syracuse, and I was delivering blood, like platelets, to like hospitals and just doing stuff and kind of trying to find myself and figure out where I want to go. And I just decided, hey, I'll go get my CDL. So I got my CDL B. I didn't get an A because I didn't want to do like over the road stuff, but I wanted to get something under my belt, and I thought maybe I could go work for, some kind of local company making $40,000, $50,000 a year, staying in Onondaga County. Yeah. So as soon as I got out of school, which was like 2 weeks, because, you have to learn a lot of tandem, and it's a very, condensed version of a CDL license. I say normal schooling's probably 8 weeks. If you go full time, this was like 2 weeks full time,
Yeah.
So I got out of there and I went and became a beer delivery guy, and they needed people desperately. So I started working for a beverage company, throwing beer kegs and cases and, in the black ice and old basements that are 100 years old and stuff, and did that for like 5-6 years. Actually, I think it was about 5 years. Mm-hmm. I did that. So
a lot of delivery, driving trucks.
Yep. Yeah.
CDL.
Yeah.
You've got one kid by this time.
Yeah, I had. We had Ari first. Mm-hmm. She's 14, and Landon is 8.
Okay.
So
they're quite a few years apart.
Yes.
Yeah. So you waited a little bit, kind of got established. Financially, like we were in, 2009, 2010, that was really hard. Did you go through any financial struggles?
Not really.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of the guy who, when the going gets tough is when I kind of kick into gear.
Right.
It motivates me. I always find a way. you know? So I think when I'm put in those kind of situations, I feel like I thrive a little bit more.
Yeah.
You know, like I've mentioned on like some of my live videos, I've told people like who don't think they can afford an S58. You know, they might make $10,000 or $15,000 less a year than they want to make.
Yeah.
I'm always like, well, maybe if you bought that car, it would motivate you to go out and get a better job, a second job, or move up in your company, or switch careers, or make a lifestyle change of some sort, so that you can have something to work for, have some kind of goal to work for. You know.
Absolutely.
Because I feel like if people get comfortable where they are with their income and their life and their lifestyle, you know, they have no light at the end of the tunnel. There's nothing to make them want to, you know, grow and evolve.
Right.
You know,
I get it, because I do fitness races, and I always tell people, if you sign up for a race now, it's going to motivate you to start training. You know, there's something that you're going to have to perform for. Yeah. And unless you do it, that holds you accountable. So I get the methodology there. Do you feel like your upbringing and what you went through set you up to become such a go-getter, a rigid person like that?
Yeah, I just, you know, I never really had a free ride. I didn't come from money or anything like that. I've always had to work for everything. Right. So I think in a sense, yeah, that probably has something to do with it. You know, being out on my own at an early age and, you know, always having to work for everything, you know, probably plays a role in that. You know, you get some survival skills and some street smarts. Yeah. You know.
Sounds like you have a lot of that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I would hope so.
I think the world needs a bit more of that. You know, I feel like the culture nowadays depends too much on their parents or other people. It's always someone else's fault for their lack of. Yep. And
no accountability.
Right. We see this playing into social media. We see this playing into, like, electricity takes the path of least resistance. It's like people are doing that more and more lately. And to my brain, I would assume to yours, and why you're the type of character, the character that you have and what you stand for and what you believe, is because of that. So let's wrap this up. Like, we've kind of gotten through the majority of Darrell's life. So where are you at now? Family, job, business, career, like, kind of put that into a conclusion.
I can't work for another company. I don't do well with like authority, and I'm kind of have that entrepreneur mentality, you could say. I don't do well working under other people. I kind of need to do my own thing and work for myself. So that's kind of where I'm at, you know, in terms of like the BMW stuff and the side hustle and the, you know, me working as an independent contractor, you know, delivering pharmaceuticals and doing Amazon on occasion. You know, I feel like I need to work for myself, and I can't really work under anybody else. You know, I feel like that's the best way to survive in this country.
So you deliver pharmaceuticals?
Yes.
So you're a drug dealer?
Oh, yeah. Yes, technically, yeah.
So is this your business then, or do you work for...
No, I work for a company that has a bunch of independent contractors that work under them.
All right. So in a sense, you're working on your own. It's just these companies are getting you the jobs and you facilitate the delivery.
Yeah, we use our own vehicle. We pay for our own fuel and all that. We write off our stuff, you know what I mean? But they don't have to pay us like workers' comp or, you know, health insurance or anything like that.
Right.
So
because you're an independent.
Yes. Yeah. And you know, that adds a lot to the cost. That's why people get paid so much less, because of all these overhead costs. Right. You know.
So tell me about your wife and kids, like whatever you feel comfortable with, you know, this being on the internet and everything, but what's family life look like?
My daughter is autistic. She's nonverbal. She doesn't speak. So she's, not social at all. She probably, has the mind of probably a 4 or 5-year-old.
And how old is she?
She's 14.
Okay.
Yeah.
So your first child?
Yep. First child. So having an autistic child, as your first child, it will scare you a little bit, because then you're worried that you're going to have a second child that may have some type of special needs, you know. But we decided to have another child, and at that time, my wife couldn't get pregnant. So, you know, we went and had our bodies tested and stuff, and then it ended up being something that was going on with her, not with me. So we did, you know, fertility and stuff for my son.
Right.
And then we had a boy. I got lucky. We had a boy. You know,
We got lucky.
No, nobody wants a bunch of girls. You know?
Yeah.
I have friends that have 3 or 4 girls.
Yep. My
And
wife
I'm
comes
like,
from
oh,
a family of 3.
keep trying. You'll have a boy eventually. It's like, you know, you get 5 girls, you don't know. So
So you got a girl and a boy.
yeah. My son's typical. His name's Landon. You
Okay.
know, he's got a couple little speech problems and stuff, but nothing major.
Right.
So, and he's a handful. You know, my daughter's easy.
Just an active boy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's good.
And he's like a spitting image of me, which is terrible. My mom always warned me.
Yeah.
She said, wait till you have a boy and wait till you have to deal with the stuff that I dealt with when you were a boy.
Yep.
You know, and she takes amusement in that. You know?
That's pretty hilarious that, you know, we kind of get what we gave back in the day with our kids. But that's cool. Like what's a typical day look like for you with the family? I
mean, I get up, my wife does the cooking and the cleaning. She's a stay-at-home mother.
Nice.
But I get up, I do breakfast. I like to cook breakfast for everybody. And then, you know, I go to work, and then usually I'm in and out of the house periodically between jobs. You know what I mean? So I don't have like a 9 to 5, essentially.
You're just, you know, in and out.
Yeah, I'm all over the
doing
place.
Doing your thing.
Yeah. But I'm usually home, you know, 3 o'clock, I would say, for the rest of the day. I might leave again at night for something. I stay up later than them because I do social media stuff here and there, and I'll get on there and do some Instagram stuff or whatever. Yeah. But for the most part, unless I'm out doing car stuff, I'm pretty much around a lot with the family. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because unless I have something, you know, our car season is so short, you know, especially all winter, I don't do nothing. Yeah. I'm not really out with the guys, drinking, partying, going out to bars and doing that. I'm just above that. That's not really my thing. You know, I'm 43 years old. Right. So
you haven't really done pot or anything since a long time ago.
I mean, I went through a phase of my life before I had kids where we would do, you know, we experimented with ecstasy and cocaine and stuff on the weekends, you know, when I was in my 20s doing stupid stuff. But once I had kids, it was no more of that. Yep. You know, at all. I don't understand. I still have a lot of friends who do that kind of stuff now after being parents, or now decided to start doing it again because their kids are older and they're teenagers. You know, when kids become teenagers, they don't want to have anything to do with you. And they do that. And I'm just like, I don't know, man. I can't do that. I feel like I'm a bad parent. You know, I don't think I'm the world's greatest parent. I'm far from it.
I think we all kind of feel that way at some point.
I don't know. I don't even like to really drink around my kids.
You want to be a good example.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you coming from, I mean, a quote unquote broken family.
Yeah. 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 My parents,
how has that impacted you?
Ups, you know what I mean? They were fuck ups. I mean,
how has that impacted your parenting?
I'm a little less naive. I feel like my mom was kind of naive and she was very free spirited. Parenting in the 80s, man, was just so much different. Yeah. You let kids go out, play out by themselves, run around the neighborhoods, get into trouble, do whatever you want. The weather was much different, you know, out there than it is out here. Their winters out there are like 50. Yeah. You know what I mean? Summers are 80. Right. And that part of California. So it's a whole different world than it is here. But, you know, everything was just different in the 80s than it is now. You know what I mean? Now you don't dare let your kids outside, dude, for 4 or 5 hours blocks away from you because somebody will
with no phones.
Yeah, somebody will snatch them, or somebody will run them over while they're texting and driving. Right. You know, like it's just a completely different world.
It's so crazy. I remember like this time of year, we'd be gone all day out in the snow, walking across busy streets go into our friends' houses. We didn't call, we didn't text. There was no phones back then.
Yeah.
So it was like you would just show up. Hey, what's up, Bobby? You want to play?
Yeah.
Go outside, do a snowball fight, whatever the case may be. Yeah, sure. And then it's like dark. And you're like, oh shit. Well, I better get back home. And then you get home and it's like, where were you? Why didn't you call me? It's like, well, we're out in the middle of nowhere and a mile away in the snow in a blizzard. They're like, oh, okay, well, take all your wet clothes off and throw it outside. Like, it was it.
Yeah.
Now it's, you need to write down the schedule of what you have going on and your phone in your pocket and like 500 things, layers of clothes. Let's get in the car side of things.
Okay.
So let's start off with this. Before we get into the juicy stuff, let's get into what cars has Darrell had? What was your favorite car like growing up?
I mean, when I was a kid, I was dreaming big. I wasn't into corny cars. I was into, Lamborghinis and Ferraris.
No.
Like you remember like the Diablo.
Yeah.
Pininfarina, like, you know what I mean?
McLaren.
Yeah, McLaren, the first McLaren, where the seat was in the middle.
In the middle.
Yeah.
One-seater.
Yeah, I did the toy cars and stuff like that. But, and when I really got into cars, believe it or not, is I had a guy, this old guy, sell me a 92 Nissan Sentra SER. And that was probably like my first quick car. It was like a 14-second car. But that was like quick back then.
What year was that?
What year did I get it?
Yeah,
it was a 92. I want to say I probably got that.
I don't remember any Sentras being fast in 92.
yeah. It was a pretty quick little car.
Okay.
They were 2,400 pounds.
Okay.
Manual.
Yeah, like
real
that.
light. And I got it. It was modded. It had a couple things done to it, and it was kind of rusty. And I remember I bought it for $1,400. And, I drove it around. And at that time, Mustang GTs, were like 240, 260 horse. And I would hang with them because the car was like 1,000 pounds lighter.
Yeah.
Right? So it was all about the horsepower to weight ratio.
Right.
A
lot of people didn't think about that. It was all horsepower numbers. Like,
it was a sleeper. It was a sleeper for sure.
Yeah.
And nobody really knew how great of a car it really was. And unfortunately we didn't get the turbo version, which is the SR20 DET here in New York. But I started reading about that, and then my friends got me into Mitsubishis. So then I got the DSM bug. So then
you had an Eclipse.
Yeah, I had a total of let's see, 1, 2, 3 DSMs. So I got my first DSM and just modded it, 14s, 13s, 12s.
Back in the 90s?
No, this was early 2000s.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's still pretty fast.
At this point.
12s in 2000.
Well, I went 11s. I went 11.6 with it. That was the fastest pass. It was an old Frankenstein turbo. I don't know if you remember watching the Zona podcast, but his first set of turbos back in the days were the Frankenstein turbos.
Oh, okay.
Way back in the late 90s, early 2000s. So it was a Frankenstein 20G. And I had one on the car, and it went like mid 11s. And
boost controller, or was this just back when they were?
Do you remember SAFC2?
No.
Okay, it was.
I was a Mustang guy.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
I mean, you were either a Mustang guy or a non-Mustang guy.
Right, yeah. No, it was like a little box that you tapped in, and it would just change fueling. It was just such a basic fuel controller.
Yeah, it was like the Motive #1 back in the day.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It was an SAFC2, and it was just a little box, and you just turn stuff when you want more fuel and turn it down when you want less fuel. Super simple setup. And then I ended up getting rid of that car because I got into Subarus. I got my first WRX, and it was an 09.
Okay.
And immediately just fell in love with them. At that time, I couldn't afford an Evo or an STI, so the WRX was a nice car for me.
Yeah, to get you kind of into that playing field.
Yeah, and I'd always been into cars, and I got the bug definitely with the DSMs in terms of manual, four-wheel drive boosted cars.
Yeah.
But then I got into Subarus, and of course everybody's like, oh, it's so fucking stupid. Mitsubishis are so much better. But Mitsubishi was kind of falling off at that point.
They were very...
I don't know if you remember, but the 09 WRX is when they bumped horsepower significantly.
Okay.
So they actually had as much power, pretty much as fast as an STI, because they went with a larger turbocharger.
I gotcha.
So, they were like low 13-second cars from the factory.
Mm-hmm.
So I took that and, started modding that, do full bolt-ons, and that was like a deep 12.0 car. Couldn't quite get it into the 11s. It had a sunroof, and I was running some cheap cast wheels and some like Wanley tires, just very budget kind of stuff.
Yeah, budget as fast as you can go on a budget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I drove the hell out of that thing. I beat the snot out of it, and then I ended up blowing the head gasket. And it was just leaking a little bit.
Right.
So it was burning a little bit of oil. So I pulled a douchebag move, and I went and traded it in. And they didn't even start it. They didn't test drive it.
They
Nothing.
traded it out.
Yep. Traded it out. Bought a Hyundai.
Okay.
Bought a Hyundai just to get out of it.
Uh-huh. But it was a Hyundai without
Sonata.
A head gasket leak.
Exactly.
So you were +1.
I bought a brand new one.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah. So, and then I drove that for a while, and then I'm like, okay, I got this car. I gotta get out of this car and get back into another sports car. So I went back and forth between having like daily drivers and sports cars.
So how long did this last where you're kind of in limbo there?
In Subarus?
Yeah.
Oh man, I mean, I was into Subarus up until like 2021.
Oh, okay. So this is recent. This is bringing us closer.
Yeah, I had a lot of them. I had a Legacy GT Spec B. I had another WRX. I had a white one that I built up that ran 10s.
Yeah.
And then I always had a love for Subarus. I just love them. I'm a stick car guy. Actually, is my roots. So I got to a point where I was able to have 2 sports cars. So I got the CTS-V because that was like my dream car. I said if I'm ever gonna buy a V8 and graduate to American muscle, no offense, it's not gonna be a Mustang,
right,
or a Camaro. To me, the CTS-V, the supercharged, 2009 and up, the V2s was like my dream car for domestics.
I think a lot of people would agree with you. It's almost like the BMW or Mercedes AMG of the American world.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And I couldn't afford an AMG E55. You know what I mean? Those cars were just stupid expensive when they came out. And they had come down on price very fast, as any high-end German car does, whether it's an M5, an M8, or V8 Mercedes. But I always had a special place in my heart for the CTS-V. So I had that and the Subaru at the same time. And it was nice to go back and forth between them because they were complete opposites in every way. One was stick, one was auto. One was a 4-cylinder, one was a V8. One was turbo, one was supercharged. One was 4-wheel drive, one was rear-wheel drive. So I kept both of those cars for quite a long time. At that time, I had a white one.
This was when? Where are we at now in time?
2015 was when I bought the V.
Oh, okay.
And then I sold the WRX and immediately missed it. And I ended up going and buying 2019 STI.
Oh.
And built that one to be a little bit slower. And still had the caddy.
Right.
And then I kind of got into BMWs. My buddy Scott got me into BMWs.
So Scott probably had a BMW.
Oh, yeah.
I would assume. You went for a ride in it.
No, we were raced on the street. He beat the snot out of me.
Yeah. And what was your initial feeling? Because now you're in that spot talking to these other non-BMW people, like, your cars are garbage type of thing.
I never respected BMWs.
Did you respect it on that day when you got beat?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
I ended up buying an N54 because of it.
Oh, okay.
As a winter rat. I bought an N50. Yeah. 335XI.
And how did you like that car?
I loved it.
Okay.
But I didn't do anything crazy to it. I just did a JB4.
That's probably
like a
why you
12-second
still
car.
loved it.
Yeah. Right.
Because when you start modding those cars, then everything, I mean, it seems like you got a misfire
High pressure
every
fuel
week.
pump issues. Yeah.
You're just replacing.
Valve cover gaskets leak.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's a good, I mean, my entry level BMW fast car was an N54 as well.
Yeah.
That we did a ton of work on, and now has 1,000 wheel horsepower, just shy of that. So that got you into BMWs. What was your first BMW car that you got into then?
Well, the N54, not including the N54.
Yeah, after that.
Me considering a BMW as my main bitch, we could say, right? Is the Supra.
So you're trading in all the bitches
Well,
for one main bitch.
No. I had a Supra, and then I ended up buying an X3M because I got my Supra and it was locked.
Okay.
And I was waiting for them to unlock it. So I did my thing and set a couple micro records with that car. Went 1165 at 117, locked ECU.
Wow. What year was the Supra?
I was an A91. It was 2021.
Okay.
The refraction blue, that beautiful blue.
So Gen 2 B58.
Yep.
With a locked DME.
Yep.
And then did you ever unlock it?
No, I got rid of it before that because I had gotten an X3M. Scott was like, hey, man, you should check out these S58s. They're better than the B58s.
Because it's an S.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm looking at these SUVs and they're running 10s. And I'm like, I got to get one of these things. And I was impatient and I didn't want the two-wheel drive G80, So I bought an X3M.
Smart man.
I love the X3M so much. I had the Supra and the X3M at the same time. So, it was a killer combo. At this point, I'd gotten rid of the V, the Subaru was gone and everything.
Right.
At this point, I'm becoming what you would consider a BMW fanboy at this point, right? Converting. And I go through cars, get bored super easy. There were times in my life where I would get a new sports car every year and a half. Soul searching, you could say. Looking for car peace, So once...
You never found the right one?
Yeah. And the X3M was there, but it was still an SUV.
Right.
And then BMW announced that they were going to drop the G80 and the G82 in X-Drive. And I was right then and there.
You were hooked.
I knew that car was going to be the GOAT. And I don't know why nobody else saw it and everybody else slept on it.
Here's why no one else saw it. Because if you're a BMW enthusiast from a while ago, BMW was rear-wheel drive. It was horsepower. It was naturally aspirated. It was, it's been built in us over time that you don't have an M car that's going to set records in all-wheel drive with turbos, etc. And this was just new to people, right? So I think a lot of people were like scared.
Yeah, but
or unsure.
We had the F90. The F90 was a beast.
But they weren't all-wheel drive.
Yeah, they were.
Some of them.
Yeah, the F90, the M5s they had the selectable two-wheel drive, four-wheel drive before we had it,
A lot of people didn't have F90s, though. I think that the F80 crowd moving into the G80.
Most of the people that drove F90s were probably like wealthier businessmen and spoiled little rich kids, right?
I would agree for the most part.
Yeah.
But it was new. And I've been saying this for years, like since early 2000s, like this is one thing that Mitsubishi and Subaru had before anybody else was all-wheel drive.
Yeah.
And you were able to take that power and put it to the ground.
Yeah.
But what was missing is I think that the rigid chassis, the BMW M chassis that you could take around turns, a track, while having the ability to have all-wheel drive, selectability, and have that X-Drive be able to put that torque to the wheels at the same time, wasn't really working yet.
Right.
And I think the G80 really harnessed all of that and put it all together. So that's what led you to get your first G80 then.
Yeah, I mean, I funny story. Not a lot of people have heard this unless they follow me, where maybe one or two occasions I've said this on my videos, whether it's a live video or maybe a YouTube video. But I got a hold of the salesman, and I bought the X3M from him.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, hey, I want to order the G80, you know. Can you let me know when you get the software? Because I want to order it as soon as it's available.
Mm-hmm.
I'm checking the website daily.
Right.
I'm on the forums one day, and this guy's like, hey, I just ordered mine. And I'm like, how the hell did you order yours? My salesman didn't call me and tell me he had the software for it. So I call my salesman, and I go, hey, you know, can we order my car? He goes, oh, I don't have the software for it. I go, well, you better check. He goes, checks, calls me back 2 hours later. He goes, you know what? We just got the software yesterday, and we can order your car.
Okay.
So I order the car.
Yep.
I spec it out. I got the car in 7 weeks.
Damn.
So I'm the second one in the United States that I know of to get an X-Drive. This guy beat me by like 2 days or something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But of course, this guy's not my kind of guy. He's not out there curious to see what the quarter mile is going to be.
Right.
He's not out there beating on the car. Me, I got the car. I had already bought a set of non-comp wheels, put Nittos, drag radials on them, powder coated them black because they're gunmetal, right? A lot of people don't know that back then there was no drag pack. There were no wheel and tire combos. There was nothing for these cars.
No.
So I had to, being a 2019, and I got Pirellis, but being a 2019, the non-comp and the manual had a 1918. So you just got more sidewall, smaller diameter rim.
Right.
So I thought, okay, I'll just buy non-comp wheels. I'll put fatter tires on it. So I get it, and immediately I drive it home from Rochester, and I put Nittos and 19s and 18s on it, and I'm out making quarter mile hits, 100, 150 miles after I bought the car. And at that time, nobody in the world had laid down quarter mile data for this car. Mm-hmm. Not any YouTubers, not Car and Driver, not Road and Track. These guys don't give a fuck what these cars run in the quarter.
Right.
Like, they just don't.
It wasn't a thing.
It wasn't a thing.
Right.
These cars weren't built for drag racing.
Mm-hmm.
They were built to go faster on a track as the sole purpose of the car.
Right.
But there were some people who wanted to know what the quarter mile was in the car. So I'm out there making quarter mile hits, and I could not get the thing to run in the 10s for two reasons. One, it was summertime. Two, I'm running these big, doofy, heavy drag radials that are way wider than they need to be because I'm carrying over what I think is good knowledge from a two-wheel drive aspect from my caddy, where wider is always better, run the biggest tire possible. Not the case. I didn't know any better back then. I probably could have ran 10s with that car if I had like a Michelin PS4S on it and I took some weight out and went out on a nice cool night. Because, it didn't have the CCBs, which would have made it a little harder. But, I had carbon buckets. I'm a pretty light guy. I'm like 170. So, but the car went, 11.0, 11.1. And that was kind of sparked people's interest. Yeah.
Stock with a tire and wheel setup.
Yeah.
With probably
OEM wheels.
pressure.
OEM wheels. They're just off of a different model.
Tire.
Yeah.
So it's on a tire.
Yep.
And probably reduced pressure.
The tire was slowing me down, though, because I didn't need that much tire.
Right.
It was a 305 35 19 in the back and a 285 40 18 in the front.
All right. So at this point, you are taking a stock G80, and you're right in the beginning of things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Trying to see how fast you can get this thing to go.
Everybody was. Everybody wanted to know what these things run in the quarter mile.
Right.
What they trap, what they run on the street. You just go out, you do a small burnout, and you make a hit or whatever. It was summertime. I got the car in August, so it was pretty warm.
It's warm. You're throwing down sometimes. Now, that kind of brings us up to date. So that's when Darrell, a.k.a. S58, is the GOAT, kind of evolved on the scene. You've got internet presence. You essentially just started posting your times.
Yeah.
Right.
Just sharing
your
it with people
times.
like, hey, look how amazing this is. Look at what this car does stock.
Right. And that kind of evolved then into an interest in following you and seeing all of these draggy runs now on your G80. So Darrell has a G82 now. But when you owned your G80, how many logs did you have on this thing? How many street quarter-mile draggy passes?
On my first one, I don't know, probably 500.
Okay.
I put the JB4 and the downpipe on it shortly after that. I didn't waste any time.
Right.
So, I don't know, 2 weeks.
Okay.
Maybe.
2 weeks until you did that?
Yeah.
You did the break-in service?
I did. I did it early. I break my cars in
Immediately?
Hard. Yeah.
Okay.
150 miles, I change the oil, and she's ready to go.
Okay.
But I had to bring it in for the free oil change and diff fluid change at BMW. So I done that, and immediately after that, JB4 and downpipe goes on the car.
And then
bring
you
the
run
car.
some more passes, and then what did it run on that?
It went 10-0.
Okay.
And this was pre-Femto, pre-XHP days. What people don't understand is it's not the same thing as you running a JB4 and XHP now, because these were full torque limitations around the car.
Yeah.
Huge. You're talking 0.2 of a second, easy, having those removed.
And was that on ethanol?
Yeah, it was a crazy concoction of fuel that I made. I blended some leaded gas with some ethanol with an octane booster. I don't even remember. I think I had like 4 different kinds of fuel in the car. I'd made my own little custom map or whatever. And the car was normally like a 1020 car, but I had like a 15 mile an hour tailwind that day at the track. And I just got like a 144 60 foot. And it went 10-0 on the slip.
So were you one of the first to break into the nines with this car?
No.
That was been done.
Nope. That's a long story. Yeah.
Well, let's shorten it.
Okay.
Put a cap on it.
Okay. When we were waiting for tuning, Visconti had reached out to me. He actually wanted me to leave my A91 with him. So we had kind of spoke before on that. But he had reached out to me and said, hey, we want to tune your S58. We know you can drive. I have this thing where we can clone an X3M ECU, and we can run it in your G80. We have to run Ecutech. So me and Merrick from, M Powerhouse were like the first ones to do that. So we did the whole cloning process, and Visconti started tuning, and Merrick was the first into the nines. My car was not any faster when Visconti tuned it. And I think that the reason that it wasn't any faster than it was on the JB4 is because of the torque limitations.
The torques, yeah.
John didn't know how to get around that. And, that pretty much stopped me from going into the nines. And at this time, it was like winter time. And Merrick was crazy, man. Merrick was motivated. He was cutting serious weight, dropping exhaust off the car, willing to put meth injection on the car, do whatever he had to do to get into the nines. He
Throwing shit at it. Yep.
Yeah, he knew that he had to be the first to get into the nines because I was right there. He deserved it. He had a shop that got him a lot of customers and a lot of clientele and helped grow the S58 platform.
Right. Yeah, he was one of the first and still is.
Yep. And we're good friends.
Yep.
I've busted his balls and, said he's been dishonest about some things along the way, just like I do with everybody. I've been skeptical. That's just my personality. Some people tolerate it and some people don't,
So shout out to Merrick. We really appreciate you. What a nice guy, too.
Yeah, very, very nice.
He'll talk to anybody. He's always got that laugh, that personality.
He's just got good energy, man.
What a great guy.
All them Jamaican guys do. Him, Rick, all them guys.
Yep.
One stock, all them guys. They were all really good people to be around.
They've really pushed the G80 community in a positive way. I think that there are some companies and people that have pushed this in a negative way. And I think that this is where we kind of transition to just the overall kind of like negative side of things that we're seeing out of people, a lot of stuff that's hidden that they don't tell you. So let's get into that a little bit. You have a strong social media following. You don't have hundreds of thousands of followers, but what I've seen is the followers that you do have are like very organically watching your content. They want to see what you're going to say next. And I feel like people either love you or they hate you. So why do you think that is?
Because I question a lot of things, because I don't sugarcoat shit. And I like to call people out on their bullshit. And I'm not afraid to tell anybody if I think they're doing something the wrong way, or they could be doing it better, or they're being, sneaky about doing something, and telling people that they need certain mods that they may not need, anything like that. I have no filter. And because I don't run like a big successful business like you, I don't have to walk around on eggshells. I can just be myself, and just, and argue and debate anything with anybody. And people love me or hate me for that reason. I'm very opinionated, and, I've put in the blood, sweat, and tears, and done a lot of trial and error, and figured out a lot of stuff the hard way, and I don't have a shop and an unlimited amount of money like these guys do, and resources to do it as easy. Right. That's kind of why I've lived in the stock turbo space for so long, where all the other guys immediately just wanted to go big. They got bored very, very quickly with the stock turbo stuff.
Okay. So a lot of people have said, like, oh, Darrell and his rants, and like, you'll get on a subject and just really beat it to death. And it seems to ruffle some feathers, because it's like Darrell's way or the highway. What would you have to say to those people?
Yeah, I mean, that's just who I am. I mean, I love for somebody to come into the conversation and tell me what I'm wrong about, and explain to me why I'm wrong, but some people, I think, take enjoyment in watching me. I'm not saying that I'm always right, but most of the time I am. And if I'm not, come in and correct me and make me look like a fool and say, hey, yeah, you're not right. You're wrong about this, and that's happened. I'm not going to say it doesn't happen. It does. But for the most part, I stand behind what I say, and I don't care about who it offends, and I don't care really if it costs somebody money either. It is what it is. I feel like this platform, and people need to be more honest and straightforward with their customers.
Absolutely. I feel that you have a passion for this car, for this platform, and just for everything that you do with it. Like, you do everything, like we've been talking about, with your whole life leading up to this point. It seems like you have a purpose behind everything that you do. And when you do things over and over and over to test them. And that drives you, it fuels you. And along with the ADHD type of thing as well, it's like your constant craving for data and moving something forward. Like, you're never satisfied almost until you reach that next point.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I feel like people may get you wrong because they're almost being confused that you're just being a dick, but really you're passionate.
Yeah.
That's what I'm seeing. Yeah. And it's not because you're in front of me. That's just what
Right. I'm intense sometimes.
Why I appreciate you and your content.
Yeah.
Because I like that. So why do you feel the need? Well, we kind of went over that. You feel the need to call people out because you feel that they're being dishonest. Yeah. What are you hoping to achieve from calling people out?
I'm hoping that everyone will be transparent, like about what's done to the car, how much weight they have out of the car. And I think a lot of that comes down to, like, if you go fast in a car and you've got 100 pounds out of the car or 150 pounds out of the car, it's almost like the internet won't give you like that credibility, and they'll just be like, oh, he's gutted, that's why he went that fast. And now the new thing will be, well, I did this full weight, or I did this and I'm a heavier driver than him. Or I get this a lot. People are like, well, Darrell has CCBs and I don't. Like, there's always excuses. It's like, why didn't you spec your car out with CCBs and buckets then? What stopped you from getting a car with those specs? Nothing. you were too impatient. You didn't want to spec out the perfect goat, so you bought one off the floor that has steel brakes and base seats. You know, like if you're a 250-pound guy with steel brakes and base seats and you refuse to pull weight out of your car, you can't chase numbers that I'm doing. It's just not going to happen. You know what I mean? And I don't think people can kind of wrap their head around that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my thing, is I just want people to be transparent. I want people to be genuine, and I don't want people to just view everything as just how much money you can make off of a customer. You know, how much money can I generate? And it seems like that's the direction that the community is going in now.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Everybody wants to make that dollar.
Yeah.
And it seems like a lot of people are willing to sacrifice their integrity for money. And we don't want to call anybody out, per se, on this podcast, but I think that people watching this may know that they may be one of those people, right? There are companies that are pushing out products that they say is one thing and you're getting another thing. Or their tuning is one thing and this is what we deliver to our clientele, but really it's potentially a copy-paste scenario.
Absolutely.
Right? What do you have to say to these people specifically, and why do you think that they should be more honest in their business practices?
Well, I mean, I hate it. I don't know if they'll ever be honest. People are always going to paint this picture as if their tuner, gives the sauce. You know, at the end of the day, man, we all have, say you're a stock turbo guy. We all have the same size turbos. We all have the same fuel ceiling. We all have the same injectors. We all have the same low pressure fuel pump and high pressure fuel pump, right? So unless you're tuning the car to that ceiling and giving it everything it has, then what makes your tune more special than the next guy's? But again, my idea of the perfect tuner might be different from your idea of the perfect tuner. Some people think that they want a tune that's living on the edge and is the fastest the car can possibly be, is the best tuner. Me, I think the best tuner is a tuner who tunes your car. It's quick, but it doesn't blow up. Like, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Because these guys are not the smartest. I mean, some guys don't use good fuel, and they don't maintain their cars and change your spark plugs very often or change your oil very often. So if they're not doing their part, doing proper maintenance and keeping a close eye on things and logging stuff, then, it could not necessarily be the tuner's fault.
So you need to build in that margin of error.
Yep.
Or have a couple of tunes, like what we typically do is we have a kill tune.
Yep.
And that kill tune is your car has the proper maintenance. Your car is set up. You have
fresh set of plugs.
Fresh set of plugs, gapped, everything's checked, torque, tightened, looked over, fresh oil. It's not super diluted with ethanol.
Yep.
You are using the proper fuel. You're not on a mix of E62 when you should be E85 or greater,
right.
Type of thing. And then we have a flex fuel margin tune. Where we have more than enough margins built in
tunes.
for. I understand.
That's
a different story.
Yeah.
But I think that the reason, man, now we're going down I think a lot of people that don't like flex tunes are because I have seen a lot of tuners set up their flex tunes incorrectly. There should be appropriate fuels tested within their tables. And I'm not a tuner, full disclosure.
Right.
But from what I have learned, these tables are created when you test a shit fuel to the best fuel and everything in between, and then we can create tables on the flex with margin of error. Would be the best way.
Yeah.
A lot of people are just going to the pump, filling up with E73 from their pump on one summer day, and then the tuner's going, we're going to guess where it's at down here, and we kind of know where it's going to be back up here, and we're right here right now, and we're going to mix everything together.
Yeah.
And it's really not the best. So not to get into that or anything,
Yeah,
but
we could spend a long time.
we could spend a long time. But I feel like people, including myself, should appreciate you because you're bringing honesty, you're passionate, you are calling people out because you feel that they're doing the community and people a disservice by putting out the wrong information. It's almost like, here's the magic pill. They don't know necessarily what's in it. You're telling them what's in it, but it's diluted with a bunch of shit. And you're bringing out that shit for all of the community to see, per se. It ruffles a lot of feathers, but I think that in doing that, it is producing people to be a bit more genuine with their product. And I think we need more of that. It's difficult because everybody makes mistakes. We're all human. Sometimes we get too big for our britches, per se, as a company, growing really, really fast. We've grown tremendously within the past year and a half. But I don't ever want to compromise my integrity. If we make mistakes just like anybody else, but in making the mistakes, have some humble pie and realize what you did, acknowledge it, and then be a better person because of it. So let's kind of end there with that. Let's wrap this up. So why is S58 the GOAT?
Oh man.
Put a bow tie on that real quick. Why is it the GOAT?
I just think it's very well-rounded automobile.
Yep.
That you can drive fast in a straight line. You can drag race it. It's a family car. You can do road racing, autocross with it. Build quality, practicality. The ability to go from two-wheel drive to four-wheel drive is an absolute cheat code. I mean, you can't even do that with like a Porsche 911 Turbo S. Something that's 3 times the price. But it's almost like it's almost like a four-wheel drive 2JZ, man, with luxury. I mean, I think it's the GOAT. I think it's going to go down to be a legendary internal combustion platform. And I obviously saw something in this platform that other people might not have seen right away. And now it's starting to come around, and I feel like it's becoming the most popular tuner car, and everything else is kind of falling back. And I think BMW is selling a lot more of these things that they anticipated.
Yeah, agreed. So 2JZ of its time, S58 of its time
Yeah,
today.
I mean, it's cost to mod, how much power it makes with such little mods. I mean, it seems like everything else is still, supercharged, using old dinosaur technology, right? Now finally GM is doing something with turbos for the ZR1, but look at like the Mustang GTD and the GT500 and the ZL1, and they kind of just regurgitated the same bullshit technology, and BMW kind of continued to move forward in engineering when I feel like all the other companies kind of stopped doing that. And I think BMW knew that this was going to be the last like internal combustion M car, and I think they wanted to go all in, to prove to everybody that they could make, a GOAT. And I know that when people saw the 2-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive thing, they thought, oh, I can drift. And me, I just thought I can warm up the tires.
Right.
I can make quarter-mile hits on the street now without being at the mercy of a track being open. That to me was just a cheat code.
So maybe we'll have a round 2 of this podcast with you, and we can go more into detail with your build, why the S58 is better than, and then we can do comparisons, Coyote,
Sure,
etc. type of thing. But what are your goals in 2025 with the car?
Nothing crazy, man. I know you guys are building the motor for around 1200 wheel, but I'm going to do some baby hybrids, maybe shoot for 100 more horse at the wheels than I have now. and probably take the car into the 9.2 range, 150 traps, consistent 4-second 60 to 130s. And I'm happy with that. I'm not trying to do 1,000 wheel, 1,100 wheel. I'm not trying to touch eights. I feel like when you take these cars into the eights, they're not reliable all the time. And as you know, I love my car, and I make 400 or 500 quarter-mile passes a year in my car.
Right.
I do a lot of driving and do a lot of I beat the hell out of the car. So I want it to stay together. I don't want it to be a money pit. And also usable power. You know, you can have a 1,000 wheel horsepower car, but how much of that are you going to put down on the street, especially when it gets cold out? You know, I put
all of mine down.
Right.
That's fun. It's a good time.
Yeah. So
that's good. You're bulletproofing your car for your needs.
Overbuild.
For what you want.
Overbuild.
I love that.
If you want a 2,000 horsepower car, you build it for 2,500. If you want a 1,200 horsepower car, you build it for 1,600. People don't get that. You don't build it for 1,000 and push 999 wheel.
Nope.
And then expect it to stay together, you know? So that's kind of where I'm going with that. You know, I should probably be doing the transmission, but we'll see how the transmission holds up.
Well, I think you're going to be just fine with that for a while here. Well, it's going to be awesome to see how that progresses through 2025 and the data that you're going to be able to get with that. So last question, where do you feel the automotive industry is going?
I was a bit worried with the way that the Democrats were running things. But I'm hoping that there's a lot of pushback in the opposite direction now. I'm not a huge fan of Trump myself at all. I'm a libertarian. I think he's kind of a joke. But I hope that we go back the other direction and we push back on the hybrid and the EV stuff for the next 4 years. So I think that there's still a good decade of this stuff left.
Of combustion engines left in it. You heard where BMW, they just released their first video on the next M car with the fully electric capability.
I haven't watched the whole thing yet.
Okay.
But I'm not anti-EV. I just bought an EV as my daily for work. I bought a Kia EV9.
Oh, okay.
And I just bought my wife a Tucson hybrid. So like I'm not anti-EV or anti-hybrid. But for sports car stuff, I am.
Yeah,
completely.
It's been ingrained to us, especially you know, in our generation, a sports car was loud and fast and fun and shifting through gears per se, and now it's turned into an electric, quiet, you know, programmable. But that's the whole thing. Is do you feel like electric is the next in evolution to the automotive industry?
I do. I don't want it to be anytime soon, but I do think that it's going to go in that direction. You know, whether they like it or not. But that doesn't mean that I want it to go there, you know? So all I can say is just hold on to your ICE vehicles. Yeah. And cherish them.
Absolutely. We need to keep them in the garage, keep them safe and preserve them.
I love the new M5. The problem is, even if you can tune the internal combustion side, you know, you can't do anything with the hybrid side. So it's like the more the computers get involved, the harder it's going to be for us to modify and tune.
100%.
You know, they can make 800-900 wheel in a new M5. You've seen Raza at RK, AutoWorks, they're doing their thing. And, you know, people don't realize how hard it's going to be to put that thing into the nines. Because even if you add all that power on the gas side, what are you going to do with the hybrid side? What are you going to do with the torque limitations? What are you going to do with the transmission tuning?
We saw how hard it was to be able to hack into even the G80 DMEs.
Yeah, that took forever.
How are we going to into a fully integrated system going to be able to hack into that? Who knows? So we'll see. But Darrell, it's been good getting to know you. Knowing why you do what you do and you say what you say. So when people watch this, hopefully they have a different perspective. Maybe they don't. I know that people are stubborn. But honestly, I think what we could get out of all of this is people, if you're trying to sell something or be somebody, be you and do the right thing. Right, we're all in this community together. Everybody is different. We all have a different story, like Darrell shared with ours. He's gone through some good times and some bad times in his life, and he's learned, but he doesn't complain about it. We get up and we put our clothes on just like everybody else does, and put one foot in front of the other. So hopefully we can all come together a bit better as a community and learn from one another and grow, because that's what it's all about.
Definitely.
All right, buddy. Good to see you.
Yes.
All right.
It's been a pleasure. We'll do another one when I come up to pick up the car.
Sounds good.